Well, oh, happy day. Oh, happy day. We are here with Karen White. And though it'd be great to see you in person, this is the second best thing.
Oh, I agreed. I've missed seeing you in person, but this is lovely. Thank you.
I have missed you.
I
have missed you. Thank goodness, that we have ways to communicate without personal, but yes, right. It's great. But we're going to start right off. You are right in the middle of your virtual tour, if that we can call it that, for the last night in London. What a great book.
Thank you. Karen,
I love your writing. This is fan time. But this one particularly struck home with me. As you know, I've told you that. So tell me, we'll get back to other things, but how did this book come to be? Some people have told me, they said, oh, I heard that Karen wrote a sequel to After the Rain or whatever.
Oh, no, not a sequel.
Not at all. Now, this is not a sequel. This is a continuation possibly of a character, but this is a brand new concept idea book.
Right. You don't need to have read any other book before reading this. It's completely standalone. After you read it, if you want to go back and read other books just to find the genesis of two of the characters, great. I think you'd enjoy it. But no.
And those two are?
So Maddie Warner and Precious Dubose, who are two of the main characters in the book. And Maddie Warner, so, she comes from Falling Home and After the Rain. In Falling Home, she's 14 years old, and small town, imaginary town that's kind of based on several little southern towns that I know in Georgia. And so in Falling Home, she's 14. She goes through the loss of her mother in that book. And then 4 years later, we see her again in After the Rain. And we leave her in that book. She's an 18-year-old young woman about to launch her life. And she was one of my favorite characters. And ever since that book came out, I have been getting emails from readers saying, you have to tell the rest of Maddie's story. And I've just been kind of waiting. I knew I wanted to go back to Walton, Georgia, but I didn't want to set another book there. So I love fish out of water stories. So I decided I'm going to put Maddie in this book, which is set in London, which is set in the exact building that I lived in for 7 years when I was growing up. And then I borrowed a character, Precious Dubose, who we meet in All the Ways We Said Goodbye, which is my last collaboration that I did with Lauren Willig and Beatriz Williams. And in that book, we meet Precious Dubose in 1964. And she only alludes to sort of a mysterious past from World War II, which had been 20 years earlier. And again, lots of emails from readers saying, oh, we want to know, I want to see more about Precious Dubose. I want to know about her mysterious past. So when we were writing that book, we had no idea what her actual past was. And I knew I needed.
It's brilliant the way though you integrated the concepts.
Yes. Yeah. Well, because towards the end there is a twist at the end of All the Ways We Say Goodbye that came about because I asked Beatriz and Lauren if I could borrow that character for this book because I needed an historic context. And so we put our heads together and we created sort of a twist at the end that kind of explains a little bit more about Precious Dubose. Again, you don't need to read that book to read this book. We just have that recurring character, but it's not a sequel.
But to me, there's such a warmth or personal affinity to London and modern day and during the war.
Right.
And that though your 7 years there must have really affected you.
Well, of course, London is, there are no words to describe it. And to live there, how lucky I was. I wish I'd appreciated it more when I was a teenager, but when you're a teenager, you don't appreciate anything. But our building was built in 1904. It had survived the Blitz and so much more. Mick Jagger lived in it. Joan Collins lived in that building. Cliff Richard lived in the building. I lived in the building. It was just sort of
y'all should have a reunion.
Right. I'd love to meet Mick Jagger. but, right there on Regent's Park, and, so the history is there every day of your life. I mean, I used to run in Regent's Park, and, 2 years ago, they found, like, right where I run, where the path was, the skeletal remains of who they think were unidentified victims during the Blitz. And, to think that I was running on that path, and, the history is so relevant and so close. And across the street from our building was um, a, a modern building, but with a big plaque on it with a picture of Charles Dickens, or a bust of Charles Dickens, that said, you know, on this spot once stood the house where Charles Dickens lived while writing David Copperfield. And of course, you're, taken back to, like, my gosh, there's just history everywhere. It's just stunning to me that I didn't appreciate it when I lived there. And the mere fact, when we moved into our building, the porter explained that the reason why some of the windows in our flat were leaded glass and some were plain glass was because during the Blitz, nearby bombs had shattered those windows. And again, that's, living history, something that I was unfamiliar with. I loved history. My father was a history buff. Every chance he got, he'd, load up the family in the car, and we'd, travel to visit relatives, taking stops at, battlefields or museums, or, what have you. So I loved history, but this is the first experience I'd ever had of, living in such tangible proximity to it.
How much research does a book like this require?
Well, I had planned to go visit London, and then life had other plans. So that didn't happen. I mean, I'd lived there for a long time, but that was in the 80s. So it's been a while. I knew things were different. So my life kind of went topsy-turvy in 2019, and then 2020 happened. So there was no traveling involved. But luckily, there's so much written about Winston Churchill, about the war, about the Blitz. And even better, there are so many personal accounts of people the day-to-day lives of the people who lived there. There was actually, and before I do another one of these Zooms, I promise I will look this up. There's a name for it, but it was a government program where they assigned just ordinary citizens to keep track of what they were doing every day. And things from just, what ration coupons were, and, what they did that day, to, a bomb landed on our neighbor's house and they were all killed. I mean, just, and how they were substituting things in the kitchen, to make a decent meal. Just really fascinating everyday stuff that, is a writer's dream. And the National Archives were a huge resource. You can actually go visit them. They're in Kew Gardens. Obviously, I couldn't, but you can also access them online. And I found all of that extremely helpful. There was just so much written material. And also and what really worked in the book too, is that the National Archives just recently, since 2018, had released a lot of documents regarding MI5 and MI6 from during the war, for public consumption. So it all kind of worked out really well, but I still would have liked to go there.
But everything with me is about the movies and things like that. This just brought back all those great war movies about World War II. I mean, it was, there was a video going on in my head the whole time I was reading the book. It was just amazing. I mean, a sweeping saga of World War II. That's
right.
I always say this, but oh my gosh, I would love to see this movie. I would love to see this movie.
Oh.
Yeah. Work on that, Karen. That's your task.
Okay, yeah. Well, if you know anyone, if anybody knows Steven Spielberg, Spielberg, that would be helpful. It's funny because I'm a very visual writer. I mean, sometimes when I'm planning a scene or working on a scene, I close my eyes so I can see it. But for part of the research, I went to YouTube, and you can get real footage from the Blitz, which, I remember watching it while I was, just sitting on my couch and watching, on my iPad, some of these YouTube videos. And it's just, you just see these bombs, there's so many. I mean, the night sky is lit up with it. And I just can't imagine how these people survive like 9 months of almost nightly attacks. It's just that the reality is so visceral, and I think that helped me create a very real setting and a real, immediate feeling of danger and heroism and all of that. So I'm glad that you think that it translated.
Well, because there were a lot of things that you had to encompass and bring into the story. I mean, there was so much going on physically, historically, personally, emotionally, all of that had to come together in readable form.
Right.
It would have been great to have one element or whatever, but to have a really good book, you had to bring it all and make it readable. And, I didn't want to stop. And when it goes between two places, it goes through the 39-41 period, and then it goes to 2019.
Mhm.
And I'd be reading about 2019 and I'd see that it was going back to 2, 3, and I think, oh no, I want to keep here. And then I get to back there, and then I'd say, no, I don't want to leave there to come back to. So you succeeded on both levels, which is amazing.
Good. Well, I love both stories. I love both of the heroines that we're reading about, and because I'm learning about them as I'm writing them. But I thought they were both good characters to write about and to get to know. So I was eager to know their stories and how they would progress.
But
and
you mentioned that when you were writing with Lauren and Beatriz, with All the Ways We Say Goodbye, that you were already thinking about this story.
So
how long
working on them at the same time? So
how long was this story germinating?
I mean, for years, probably since almost 10 years, I guess, since I wrote After the Rain, because just so many people saying, I want to know Maddie's story. So of course, I loved Maddie, and I just didn't know how I was going to bring her back, because I didn't want to write another story set in Walton. Although in this book, we do we go back to Walton for a little bit. But I knew that wasn't, she wanted to experience more of the world than just her little town. So it was just a matter of finding the right book. And I thought that this was it.
And then there are other, we're not going to give anything away, but there are other complexities that are taking part in her life that you brought in that affected everything also. So
right.
It's a complex book, but it's a easily understood and felt book. But I want to, I loved Last Night in London, and this, and you put it up on your Instagram. It inspired me to write a poem. I never do that.
Yes,
I've never done that.
Yes, and
but
thank you. It was
just
so
about
beautiful.
The title. It was like, and all the impact of the book just was there. I couldn't get it out of my head. The Last Night in London. The Last Night in London. That's a great title.
Right.
But I want to say that, along with the comments that I've gotten about your book, just about 80% or whatever say, and she's going to have a new Trad Street book. That's, we're not minimizing this book at all, but this fall is another Trad.
November 2nd, we have the 7th and final book in the Trad Street series. It is entitled The Attic on Queen Street, and it will wrap up everything nicely. So anybody who was angry at the ending of the Christmas Trad Street, although come on,
don't know why they'd be.
It was the penultimate book. You cannot make everything happy in a penultimate book. You have to give people a reason to read the next one. So it will answer all your questions. But the good news is that I have signed a contract for a spinoff series that will feature Nola Trenham, as well as a new character that I introduced in The Attic on Queen Street. So Nola Trenham and Bo Ryan, set in New Orleans. And the first one is called The Shop on Royal Street, and it will be out next fall.
You are amazing. You are amazing.
Thank goodness for caffeine.
Listen, and people have loved that Trad Street series from the very start.
2008, if you can believe it.
And they have stuck with, another one's coming, another one's coming.
I
But
know.
now it's going to be nah. But I'm glad to spend. I like Nola. I like Nola
Yeah,
as a character. So
right. And
that's
we
going to
see
be.
like you'll be seeing Melanie and Jack and the gang. And don't forget Nola's little sister. So who has so we'll be seeing her. So yeah, we'll be still be seeing characters, but I think so I've written 3 chapters. I got to get moving, but other things like book releases and copy edits and a collaboration all kind of happening at the same time. But I just love it. I'm having so much fun because I wasn't getting tired of tragedy, but I just wanted something new and different. And I love New Orleans, like I love Charleston. I did go to Tulane, so I'm familiar with it. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm really excited about it.
Well, let me ask you this: did the publisher come to you and say we need a spinoff, or you said, "Hey, I'm thinking about a spinoff," and they said that's a great idea, or
They basically, yeah, I think it was mutual though, because I'd been thinking about it, and so when they approached me, I was like, yes, I've kind of been thinking about this idea, and they loved it. And I've only sent 1 chapter to because normally my editor just wants me to write the book and turn it in. She doesn't really need to see any of it. But I sent her, then when I put the first chapter into the back of the attic on Queen Street, and she loved it. So I'm really excited. I think readers will be very excited to see it. It's very much the same tone as the House on Trash Street series. So
I think they'll love it. I think
yeah.
that you've got a huge fan base, and they love everything that you do. I've known you a good while now.
Yeah.
We've been
We were
friends.
both babies at the time.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
But anyway, though, when I met you was at not the start of your career, but relatively toward the start.
Right.
Did you ever envision all of this?
No, I thought it was a fluke that the first book got published. I thought was a fluke. The second book I thought was a fluke. I thought it was really, everything was a fluke, that it was just an accident that I kept on getting published until like my 12th book, when I hit the New York Times list. And it's like, well,
maybe not. Maybe I'm really good at this.
or, wow, I'm just, hitting the right note there somewhere. Yeah.
But you have standalone books that have been huge successes. You've had the Trad Street series that's been a huge success, and then the perfect blend of 3 authors, which I don't know how y'all do it. Team W.
Yeah.
How in the world do y'all blend together so perfectly that you all 3 write one book?
Right. And we try not to examine it too closely, because we ask ourselves that, the first time we got together with just the idea of writing together with a vague idea of what the book could be about, and we sat down, it was like magic. I mean, I am friends with many authors, and I love many books by different authors, but I cannot imagine writing with any of them like I do with Beatriz and Lauren. We just have that synchronicity, that sort of magic zing that goes through us when we plot a book together, when we write a book together. We were friends before and fans of each other's writing, but now we were like the best of friends. I mean, I think it was just the relationship waiting to happen. And it really is a magic thing that I cannot identify. We have no idea how we do it. We just know that we do it.
Well, I have met all 3 of you. I don't know Lauren and Beatriz like I do you, but I've met them. And y'all are 3 distinct personalities.
Oh, we're so different. We're so different.
But yet you write a book. I have sat there and said, which part did Karen write?
I know, right?
I know you well, and I cannot figure
Our editor
out.
can't even tell. I know. And the 3 of us have very distinct voices. And it's amazing that we are able to blend them as well as we do.
It's fascinating. It really is. Now, is there another Team W book in the works?
Yes, and that will be out next fall as well. Next fall will be very busy for Karen White.
All right. When you say next fall, you talking about 2022?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, because
But
what year are we in? 20, yeah, not this fall. So
not
next
this fall,
fall,
but next fall.
next fall is the first book in the spinoff series, the Shop on Royal Street, and also the collaboration that Beatriz, Lauren, and I are working on right now that does not yet have a title. But I will tell you, it's set in Newport, Rhode Island, Gilded Age, 1957, and modern day.
I want to get caught up. I know you have 2 children.
Yes.
Both grown now.
I know.
How are they doing?
They're doing great. My daughter is in DC, and she is the architectural historian for a civil engineering firm. And
Megan.
then, yes, Megan, because she has her graduate degree in from College of Charleston. And actually, you will see her, the character based on her, Megan Black, who we see in some of the Tragedy books. She's actually in the collaboration.
Aha.
I know, like, oh, she's, yeah. So you see her like in various books. And then, so Connor, he just bought his own house in Atlanta, and he is working for a major corporation as a project manager in Atlanta. So he's nearby, which is nice.
Yes. And then I discovered something the other day in one of your tweets or emails or something, that Tim is not a reader.
No, I know. Like, why did I marry him? I don't know.
I'm serious. I've known you all this time. I know Tim. I did not know he was not a reader, and you made a comment about it.
He read The House on Tragedy. He said it was good, and that's the last book of mine that he's read.
So good, he never read another one.
Well, you know what? Nobody in my family, my daughter reads my books, and my son has read some of my books. My son is sort of a sporadic reader, so if I hand him a book and I say, you need to read this, he'll read it. And like, he really loved The Night the Lights Went Out. So, because it's set in Atlanta.
I remember I think the first time I met you, if I recall this right, was at the Dahlonega Book Festival.
Yes, that is
and
right.
Megan was with you.
Yes.
And she was working on her paper or something, and she was,
it was for like an A advanced like English class, and she had to like outline everything. That was annoying. Yeah.
And we were talking, and she'd be over there writing, and just so removed from everything, like it wasn't the coolest thing in the world that her mother's this gifted author or whatever.
Yeah. She's just like doing her thing. Yeah.
Yeah. But I remember that stands out in my mind. And then
and you know what? And that was a while ago, because the reason why she was with me, because my husband and son were like on a Boy Scout, like something. And in the state of Georgia, like below, under a certain age, you can't leave them alone. So she had to come with me.
Those
like 12 or something.
Laws.
Yeah. And she just turned 29, just to give you an idea of, yeah, I know, right?
You are kidding me.
No, I'm not.
Oh my gosh. I mean, because I remember her as a high school student. So
yeah,
we have known each other a long time.
Like I said, we were tiny babies. Yes.
I want to tell you this too. I live in Perry, Georgia, and you came here several years ago to talk to a book club.
Yes.
They still talk about you.
Oh, well, they need to have me back.
I tell them, they'll say, what can we do to get Karen White to come down? I said, get the thing together and she'll come.
Yeah.
Because it was a great time. Everybody loved you and had such a good time.
That was lovely.
Karen, I am so happy for your success. I really am. You deserve it, and your talent deserves it. And I appreciate so much that you would take time out from your schedule to talk with me and give people a chance to know you even better.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. It's always a pleasure chatting with you, Jackie.
Well, I'm a fan and I'm a friend, so that's the best possible worlds.
I agree.
But thank you so much, and we'll be watching for all of these new projects that you have.
I know, right? And suggesting caffeine for me.
And everybody, go get this book. Get it. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
All right.